Hello, everyone. This is Rosie, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of my podcast called My Intrusive Thoughts. I'm going to start this episode, first of all, by complaining about just how crazy this week has been for me. I can't tell you how incredibly spent I am at this very moment. First of all, I got into a weird sort of headspace in the beginning of the week because of some stuff happening, with my family. And then the next day, I developed this weird ear infection, that has made it impossible for me to wear headphones or AirPods or anything. And so I've had to watch all my shows and listen to all my podcasts on loudspeaker, which is very annoying. And after that, if that was not enough, the next day, like I think on Wednesday night, I decided to have some noodles in the middle of the night, and I usually have like a pantry full of different flavors to choose from. So I went down like in the middle of the night, it's like 3 in the morning, and I decided to have some jjajangmyeon. And so I cooked them, and just very excited about eating ramen after a long time. And I watch Glory whilst having these noodles. And the next thing I know, I wake up with my stomach feeling off, and I run to the bathroom, and then I throw up. And then after that, it was like downhill. I spiraled so fast, and I was losing so much water throughout the day that by the end of the day, I was just like, okay, I am either going to just, shrivel up or straight up die, because what the hell is going on? And it was like a bad case of food poisoning, but I think times like these, being a doctor comes in handy because I just know what to do with myself. Although, I would have to say that being a doctor and treating patients and becoming a patient yourself is two completely different experiences. When you're the third person, but like it's not happening to you actively, it's easy to keep a cool head and think of, what to do, what not to do. But when you're the patient, no matter what PhD level degree you have, honey, you're just gonna be too lost and confused about what to do. So that happened to me, but thankfully my dad was able to calm me down and guide me through it. So I'm feeling a little better now. Still nauseous, and I don't know how I'm gonna talk through this episode, but I'll try my best. So I'm sorry in advance if I sound very tired or just like I don't have any energy, because I actually don't have any energy. But it is what it is, I guess. I wanted to do this episode so bad. And it's funny because, I think I've talked about this in another episode as well, that I had my whole March planned when it came to like episodes and everything. And I have some pre recorded episodes that I wanted to release. But every week, something else comes up, and I'm like, no, I need to talk about this first before I release those episodes. And so it just keeps getting pushed back and back. But it's okay. I mean, I'm going to reserve them for when I can't come up with more new things to talk about every week. But today I want to talk about this K drama that has taken everybody up in a storm. And I don't know, I mean, this drama deals with themes that I'm not personally okay with. They trigger me so much, so very much, that I was like on the verge of just giving up midway, because I can't deal with this stuff, okay? But then I kept hearing and reading about, different reviews and what people thought, and everybody was hyping it up so much that the inner K drama lover in me could not just sit back and, let it slide, because I needed to know what the hype was about. So I just downloaded all the, episodes, and I binge watched them in like a fortnight, I think. And I have a lot to say, I guess. So we'll do that. Oh, and also Ramazan Mubarak to everybody who is going to be observing fasts. And I hope that God Almighty bestows His blessings on all of us and accepts our prayers and gives us the patience and, the power and the will to do better in life, become better Muslims, become better human beings, and be able to tolerate each other more. So, yeah, just wanted to, say that as well. So, I'm gonna be talking about the Korean drama The Glory that was, released back in December, I think, and it's available on Netflix. And if you watch on other, sites, K-drama sites, it's available there as well. But because it was released on Netflix, and Netflix has this weird thing of, producing seasons, like as if I don't know, I'm gonna be just like this is off topic, but I don't understand this whole season thing when it comes to K dramas because they're like at most 16 episodes, like a regular K drama, and they have this thing where they're gonna break them down into two different seasons, and they release like 8 episodes in season one and then 8 in the others, and they do it like they would release one season at a time with 8 episodes, and then you have to wait like 3 months or 4 months for the next season, and by the time the second season comes out you've already forgotten what happened in the first one, so you have to go back and binge watch all of that. And I just hate it. Like, why? There's no need for that. As if it's not already enough for us to have to wait like a whole week for 2 episodes. Like, I'd rather take that. Okay, I would rather take waiting for a whole week for 2 episodes than get 8 episodes at once and then have to wait like 3 months for the next 8 episodes to come out, because that just defeats the point. Like, I know a lot of people who were watching the show when the first season came out, and then they had to wait for the second season, and by the time the second one came out they had forgotten what happened in the first 8 episodes. They had to go back, and it was so much confusion, and it just breaks the sort of flow of the story, and I don't like that. So I waited patiently. Plus, also because I was not sure if I wanted to watch this or not. But then I did end up watching it, obviously. But yeah, so I waited and I binge watched it like in a fortnight, I think. So, this K drama, The Glory, is written by Kim Un Suk. And Kim Un Suk is, I think, better known for scripts like Descendants of the Sun, or you might have known her from The Heirs, starring Lee Min-ho and Park Shin-hye, or you might have known her from Secret Garden. Uh, and I think this particular story, was sort of different from the ones that she's produced before because this was so much darker. And I don't know, I mean, like, I enjoyed the plot. I think I was expecting a little more, but we'll get to that later on. But as far as her works are concerned, if I compare them, I really enjoyed the storyline. I really enjoyed the character dynamics. I really enjoyed the way she built this world. So it was nice, okay, as far as the writer is concerned. Now, I'm going to give you a little sort of summary of the plot before we jump into the characters and start talking about the actual, story, because it's important to develop sort of an understanding of what the show is actually about. Right, so as Netflix says, years after surviving horrific abuse in high school, a woman puts together an elaborate revenge scheme to make the perpetrators pay for their crimes. Right, so what did we get from that? The fact that it's a revenge plot. So, yeah, we're probably going to be dealing with a lot of dark themes here, and we're talking about bullying, obviously, we're talking about suicide attempts, we're talking about, you know, sexual assaults, we're talking about all sorts of horrific things that you could think of that could happen to a person. So, if you've not watched this show, and also, I'm going to be giving off spoilers because this is a review, so I'm going to be talking about what the actual plotline is and giveaway and all that stuff. So if you haven't watched it and you don't want to get spoilers, then you can skip and come back once you're done watching the show, or if you don't mind, then go ahead, please. I think having a good script is not enough. If you have good characters, you need even better actors to portray those good characters, to portray the dynamics, the subtleties, the quirks, of these characters, so that they can come to life, for them to be relatable in some aspect, or for them to be, easy to understand. and or maybe not even understand, but for you to sort of, get attached to them in a way. And that doesn't mean attachment in the sense of being empathetic. Sometimes you just hate them so much that they won't leave your mind, like the bullies in this show. Because if there's one thing that I've taken away from this show is the hatred I developed for these bunch of, bullies. And I think, I don't know, I mean, I feel like if I see these characters, if I see these actors in other dramas, it would probably be very hard for me to, shake off this feeling that I have for them. Because I know in my head, I know that, they are just people who are role playing, right? These are not their real characters. They are not like that. These are just, fictional characters that they are playing, and then they go off camera and they're, normal, nice people. But it's just hard because they've done such a great job at playing these characters that you just sometimes, blur the line between what's real and what's fictional. So I think that's a good thing. As an actor, I feel like that's the highest compliment I could ever get. The fact that people cannot imagine me in any other capacity because I've played this character so well. And this is also a side note, but I kind of want to know what, the cast felt like when they were given these characters, and just like, any regular actor who gets to play these villain characters, how do they go about thinking about these? How, I mean, some people like, villains, some people like to be the wamps on the shows, and I understand that. I would definitely be that kind of person who would just take up villainous roles. But I think for you to take up a role that is so evil that it's gonna follow you for the rest of your life, and I mean, that's a huge decision to make, because some people are not able to differentiate between real and fictional. And I've heard of stories where, actors get followed up or, get harassed because of some evil characters they played, on screen. And that thought just freaks me out, because I mean, I know that Dolores Umbridge, the woman that plays Dolores, is probably a very nice lady in real life, but every time I see her, no matter if it's a Harry Potter movie or if it's somewhere else, I just instantly feel this urge to just, yell at her, to just like drag her by the hair. And it's weird because that's not her. It's just a character from a book that she played, but now it's just stamped in my head that whenever I see her, I'm like, oh my god, that's Dolores, and I hate her. So yeah, this is really interesting, to think that some people would take up these sort of characters, and they they portray them so well, and they just, they live these characters even though knowing that these characters are gonna be forever sort of, these characters will become part of the history, and they will be these characters forever, even after they're gone, even if after they're 6 feet under, people would look back and they won't even remember their real selves. But these are the characters they're going to be leaving behind. These characters would be their legacy. Right, so we start our story with Moon Dong-eun, who is our main character, the victim of the plot, who gets bullied in high school by a bunch of popular kids. And she comes from a very poor background, and the only family member that she has is her mother, who is, oh my god, I don't know what it is about me just, reading up or watching shows that have evil mothers these days. Like, I did a review about Sharp Objects, where we obviously had a very interesting character as a mother, and now this show, I just, all the mothers in this show, well, not all of them, but like most of the mothers on this show are just whack. I don't know what to say. Like, wow. That's some real, weird nonsense that I got to see. And to think that people like that exist, actually exist, it's just horrifying to think about. But anyways, so she comes from a very poor background, and she's studying at the school, and she somehow rubs off the bullies the wrong way. And next thing you know, they're bullying her. And it's not just regular bullying where they're like, pouring stuff on her or tearing up her books or, messing with her locker or something, or just, sneering at her or catcalling or stuff. It's bullying that is worse than murder. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, but living through the things that Dongun goes through, like she lives through, I'd rather take that. Honestly, it's just horrifying. It made me tremble in my skin thinking of the things that she went through and survived, because those left scars that haunted her forever and would haunt her forever. And these bullies drove her to the brink of almost dying. But then, in a moment of clarity, or that moment before you give up, where you're like, a little hopeful that maybe no, your conscience is trying to fight you that this isn't it. You can't just go down without fight. In that moment, she decides that no, she will fight back. And so the next thing she does is she drops out, and then she basically disappears. And for 18 years, nobody knows what happened to her. And then she comes back with this elaborate, very extravagant, basically, plan of executioner style plan of revenge that she exacts on these people and makes them regret what they did to her. But that's not all. Obviously, it's just a very dilute sort of, summary that I gave you, because a lot happens. But before that, we're gonna, talk about these characters, these actual bullies. So we have a group of, these people, and I'm gonna go through them one by one, and then we're gonna talk about them, as the story progresses. So we have Park Hyun-jin, who is the mother of all evils. You could think of like the worst, female villains out there, and she is like 500 times worse than them. Think of Bellatrix Lestrange, or the Witch of the West, or I don't know, just think of anybody and she is worse than them, okay? Then we have John Jae-joon, who is, oh god, this guy is such a creep. God, this guy, he deserved what came for him. That's all I'm gonna say for now. And then we have Choi Jong, who is more of like a, side character who is just there to spark things up in a dull scene where she's just doing whatever comes to her mind. And she is one of those characters that don't even belong in the group, but they're just there because they are. I don't know. They just are for no reason. Nobody pays them attention, and everybody hates her secretly, but they're just putting up with her because whatever. It's fun to just, pick on her from time to time. That's the kind of, like, she's that disposable friend in this group. And then we have Isara, who is a top tier B. I'm not gonna swear because I'm fasting, so bear with me. But you get the sentiment, right? She is evil. Evil. Oh god. And then we have the last one, who is Son Myung-go. And this dude is your cliche, those loan sharks, basically. The muscly dude with the brute, basically. And who's just there to terrorize people with his strength and to basically hurt people physically so that they submit to your doings and your torture, basically. So that was him, like a lackey. And yeah, this wonderful, colorful bunch of people came from very influential families, very problematic families, I would say. People who basically were raising monsters in their homes and they had no idea. Or maybe they did. Maybe they did. I guess, I mean, I don't know about other people, but Park Hyun-jin's mother was an even bigger piece of work than her. And in that scenario, I think you could actually tell why she turned out the way she turned out. But then that's not an excuse for what she did. That is by no means an excuse for what she did. she should be held accountable for the things that she did, regardless of how she was brought up. Because some people go through worse upbringings and then still turn out well. So I'm never of the opinion that yes, it plays a huge role. Your upbringing, your environment definitely plays a huge role in how you turn up. But some things you need to think for yourself. And as you go through the story, you realize that Park Hyun-jin had so many, you know, points in life, so many, chances where she could have stopped this cycle of torture, this cycle of bullying, this act of pretending to be the biggest a-hole, which she was. She wasn't even pretending. But sometimes she put on a show just because she didn't know any other way. And that was not because she actually did not know any other way. It was just because she could, And she says that. She actually says that when Mundang Eun confronts her about her bullying her in a scene. She's like, "Why are you doing this to me?" And she goes like, "Because I can. Because people like you who are poor are losers and they can't do anything about it. So you can go ahead and call the cops or, report me to the teachers or report me to school, but that's not going to do anything because we're going to still end up in this position where you're going to get tortured and I'm going to get away with it." And that whole scene boiled my blood. Oh my god, I was so angry because the way she said it, like, I don't care, about anything, and I'm probably gonna get away with everything. And she actually did. So that made it all the more annoying. Yup, that's the kind of person she is. So it just all made me think that yes, your upbringing does affect you. And also because the fact that she knew that her mother supported her in all of that was just annoying. So the story itself is actually divided into flashbacks from the past, around 2004 when these kids are actually in high school and when the bullying takes place, and then the present day where they've all grown up and they've all found their different paths in life, and now Mundungan is back and she wants revenge for what has happened. So we start off with Mundungan, appearing very calmly, in a very serene sort of atmosphere at this apartment building. And then she meets her, landlady, and she's now setting up her new apartment. So the first thing that, gets your alarm bells ringing is the fact that she's not decorating her apartment with portraits or like, sceneries from beautiful, landscapes. It's actually photos of a bunch of people. And it's not just like photos that you would probably have of your friends. It's basically photos of them doing all sorts of things. So basically it's like a stalker putting up of, mood board of the person that they're stalking. And that's exactly what she did. She had followed her bullies and whatever they did in their lives for the 18 years that she was not around, obviously, after she left school, after she dropped out because they bullied her so much. And now she wants revenge. So she's been following them all this time and she's obsessed. She is borderline, not borderline actually, she's actually obsessed with this one girl who is the biggest bully of them all, the mother of evils, like I said before, Park Hyun-jin. So she is constantly talking to her. Throughout the drama, you would have her narrate different things to Park Hyun-jin. She's been writing all these things to her. So it's kind of like, a cathartic thing to do where she is basically addressing all her pain, all her vulnerable thoughts to her abuser. And it's very interesting because in that moment, you think to yourself that for somebody who has bullied you so much, who has literally stripped you naked and then harmed you physically, mentally, in every way possible, and then for you to find solace in talking to them or thinking about them, because that's what keeps you going. The fact that they are there, they exist, helps you not dissociate and drives you to basically do this, whatever you're doing. And in her case, it's getting her revenge. And so that's how we basically start. And then she imagines how when she's done with this revenge and when it's finally the time for Park Hyun-jin and her to sort of come in front of each other, how she would react. And she thinks to herself that when she kills her, Park Hyun-jin would still be smiling and still be her cocky self that she always was. And then she's like, okay, I need to tell you guys what happened before. And then we go back into the flashback where it all starts. And so we start off with her reporting to the police about the abuse that she's been going through. And instead of helping her, this police officer calls up one of his best friends, who happens to be Park Hyun-jin's mother, and informs her that he's going to make sure that Park Hyun-jin gets away with this. And then they have this whole back and forth between Park Hyun-jin and the police officer, which was freaking rude, by the way, because this girl just tells him that, oh, I think you're sleeping with my mother or something. And I was like, whoa, this girl has no reservations. She just says whatever she wants to say. She's rude as hell. And then you see that all these other kids, the bullies, are sitting at the police station waiting for their very well established, very wealthy parents to come pick them up, and for them to just escape this whole situation unscathed. But then there's Moon Dong-eun, and then you meet this teacher, their homeroom teacher. And this guy, oh my god, I have never ever felt so annoyed, so enraged by the fact that somebody could be this corrupt. And yes, there are a lot of people, there are mafias out there, there's corrupt as hell people out there, but this guy, oh my god. When you are a figure that is responsible for young people, for people who are not able to defend themselves, for vulnerable people, for kids, and you abuse that power, it just hits you in a completely different way. So this homeroom teacher, who is corrupt as hell and who's been taking bribes from the parents of these people, these bullies, basically he humiliates her. And so the next day, Park Hyun-jin is not done. Obviously, she is mad that Moon Dong-eun even had the galls to report them. So she exacts her revenge. And what does she do? She makes her friends basically burn her, scald her with a hot curling iron on her arms. And then she sits there and watches her scream, writhing in pain, as these girls hold her and burn her arms all over. And she's just crying and crying for help. And then this other piece of work, that is Isara, she's like, oh, you can scream all you want, nobody's gonna come and save you. Oh my god, that whole scene was so freaking intense. I think I had to fast forward a lot of these scenes because they were just so intense. The way these kids, the younger actors, have played their roles, the way they've acted, it's so realistic. I felt my heart racing every single time they would show these sort of scenes. And then there's some sort of sexual assault sort of thing happens with Son Myung-go, you know with his tongue down her throat, and she's just crying and screaming, and it's a lot to take in. But that's not even the worst of it, I guess. And then we see a montage of stuff happening to her, and over the time, no part of her body is left where she has not been burned. And nobody does anything. Everybody is watching. Everybody knows, but nobody's doing anything. So the next time, she knows now that nothing is gonna work. She can't call the cops. She can't fight the bullies themselves, because there's 5 against 1. And then so she basically goes to the school nurse and she tells her basically that she needs peroxide for her wounds, but she doesn't tell her that she needs them for the wounds. She said that she had blood on her clothes, And then the teacher, she'd already seen a similar case. So she kind of gets suspicious. She's like, what happened? And when she asks, Park Hyun-jin appears. And this girl flat out confesses that she did it. There was other girl that she did this to, and then she did this to Moon Dong-eun as well. And there's nothing that anybody could do about it. And then she walks off. Like, can you imagine the audacity of this girl? How freaking sure she is of herself, of the fact that she would just get away with it. And not just this, she would probably get away with murder. And that's exactly what happens. So when all of this gets too much, she decides to drop out. And when she does go to the, she files for dropping out. And when she goes up to the homeroom teacher, because he's corrupt as hell, this dude instead beats the shit out of her. Oh my god, in front of everybody. Because she cites the reason for her dropping out as the bullies. And he doesn't want to, let that happen, because obviously that would put him in a precarious situation with the parents that he's been getting bribes from. So he basically beats her to a pulp. And then her mother, Park Hyun-jin's mother, this woman, comes up with her lawyer to Moon Dong-eun's mother, who is a whole character. Oh my god. She is the most selfish, the most annoying, the most weird, the most infuriating character in this whole series. I mean, more than Park Hyun-jin actually. I hated Moon Dong-eun's mother for what she did. So, Park Hyun-jin's mother comes out with a lawyer and she offers her money in exchange for her to sign this paper that said that she did not actually drop out because of the bullying, but because she couldn't adjust well into the school. And she does. She takes that money, she abandons Moon Dong-eun, and then she leaves. And then Moon Dong-eun is left to just, take care of herself. And when it gets too much, she drops out, obviously. And then she realizes that she can't do anything about it. She's alone. She tries to take her life. But then she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then for the next 18 years, she concocts this, elaborate scheme to take her revenge. So in the present day, she is now a primary teacher. And coincidentally enough, or is it a coincidence? Well, she ends up teaching at the same school that Park Hyun-jin's child is enrolled in. And she becomes her homeroom teacher, actually. So that's how she starts this elaborate scheme where she infiltrates right into the most vulnerable position, where she is now in charge of Park Hyun-jin's daughter as a homeroom teacher. At this point, we now get to know that all the characters, all the bully clique basically, they are now doing different things in life. For example, Isara is now a very famous artist and also a drug addict. And then we find out that John Jae-jun is also, he has a boutique and some, he's inherited a whole business. And Son Myung-go is his driver, so he's like a lackey. He didn't go to school or whatever. So he's the only person who's not on everybody else's level. And then Choi Hye-jong, she ends up becoming a flight attendant as well. And Park Hyun-jin is a weather forecaster. Now, this was the most eerie thing for me. The fact that every day Moon Dong-eun would watch her, deliver her forecast. And I don't know, maybe it was significant in the way that just looking at her and watching her live her best life gave her the determination, fueled her fire to bring her down, because just watching her do well in life. And not just that, she had married a very rich, filthy rich CEO of this construction company, who is also a very significant character in our story, called Ha Do-young. And she has a daughter now and everything. So it's all kind of, it's kind of going well for these bullies. And nobody knows about their past, about the dark things that they've done in high school. And it's Mundongan's mission to make everybody know their business, to be able to condemn them for life. And it's a very executioner style revenge plot that she's got going, which was very interesting because I think more than the fact that she wanted closure for herself, it was punishment for them for what they've done. And throughout the drama, the way she focuses not on herself, but the prior victim, the girl that had actually died from this bullying at the hands of Park Hyun Jin, she makes her the focus of this because she had survived. She had come out of that, and she acknowledges that. But that girl who could not, she is more concerned about getting her the revenge that she deserved because nobody fought for her. And she knew better than anybody else how that felt. Not having anybody, everybody, standing there and watching her get bullied, but nobody doing a thing. And so I think that sort of made her want to do this even more. The fact alone that she got bullied herself. It was more so that she could avenge Yoon So-hee, who was the other girl that died from being bullied by Park Hyun-jin. Now, after 18 years, she ends up meeting these bunch of bullies in the school, the very same gymnasium where they had burned her. And she announces very matter-of-factly that she'd come back and she was gonna make them regret and she was gonna make them pay for the things that they'd done. And at first, them being their cocky selves, reassured selves, because they'd basically gotten away with everything before, like hell, Mundangan could do anything else to them. They were like, yeah, whatever, try me. But I think that was their biggest mistake. And I love that. I love the fact that they had no clue what was coming for them. The fact that they were so secure in their bullheadedness, in their narcissism, in their idea of, being above all. The higher you are, the greater the fall, right? So for them to be that high up on, this pedestal that they put themselves on, I just felt like when they fall, it's gonna be so satisfying, so good. And that built up the suspense, the thrill of it all, because it just gave you this motive to keep watching because wow, I wanted to see them all fall. I wanted them all to just, meet the most humiliating end, most painful end that they could for what they'd done. I feel like if I start talking about the whole way she goes around and every itty-gritty detail of her, revenge plot, it's this is gonna be like a 8 hour long episode. So I'm gonna skip on some things and just, talk about the things that really fascinated me about the story. For one, her idea of revenge was not to go out like, with a sword in hand and fight them and behead them for the things that they've done. She basically psychologically tortured them to the point that they did not know what the hell was going on. They did not see it coming. And I love that. The mind games she played with them were so good that it shook the very core of their identities. For example, these bunch of idiots were best of friends in a way. They bonded over the fact that they bullied people. They bonded over the fact that they had the power to make people, suffer. And they enjoyed that together. But secretly, they were insecure. Secretly, they hated each other. And she played on that. She played on that so well. She turned them all against each other to the point that they did not even know who was doing it. But they were so sure that, everything that was going wrong in their life was because of their friends. And that is such a good move, that's literally one of the best things to do when you can make your opponent start questioning their peers, start questioning the people who are loyal to them. I mean, you've won half the fight already, right? And not just that, she made them realize that every word that they said had consequences, which, in a normal day, life, everyday life, it's not a big deal. I tell my brother to go die, when I'm angry. Sometimes you say things when you're angry, right? Sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, you say different things, and these emotions, you don't mean them. But if they hurt people, if somebody gets affected by them and they take it too hard, it can have drastic effects on them. Now, all of these people, these bullies, were living lives that people could only dream of, obviously, because they came from influential families. And, the way they portray these characters, where they feel like whatever they have in life is, they're entitled to it. That sense of entitlement, that sense of, this is me and whatever, I can do whatever I want because I have the money, I have the power, I have the influence. She broke that bit by bit, inch by inch. And that was so good. That feeling when she would strike them, not physically, but mentally, where she would reduce them to think on their actions, to finally, for once, be held accountable for the things that they'd done. That was amazing. That was so satisfying to watch. And she was so meticulous about it. When I say elaborate, revenge plot, I mean elaborate. I mean, she literally followed them, every single significant life event that they went through. She was there, she was, taking pictures of it. Yeah, she was stalking them basically on social media, everywhere, physically, online, and she was keeping track of everything that they did. And then with that information, she was building up her own connections, her own, web of basically traps that she was setting up for them in different places so that they could fall into them and regret their very existences. And she did that. To think that she schemed all of this over 18 years itself is, it's hard to wrap your head around, because a lot of times, you start to forget, or your memories become hazy, or sometimes you're just so tired of feeling this hatred, for feeling so down, for all these things that, you're reminded of every single day. But she doesn't. Instead, she lets them fuel her so that she can keep going. And I think she makes this revenge a sort of, straw, the last straw for her to survive. This becomes her reason, her purpose in life. She's almost obsessive when it comes to this revenge plot. And so it's turned into a means of survival for her, because it's either that or death for her. Because if she doesn't get this revenge, there's no point in existing anymore. And that's sad. But that's also like, I don't know, it's almost like there has to be somebody to show them that, you know, they can't always win. And she becomes that person. In doing so, she also approaches this guy. How would I put it? Like, he is one of those characters that are not bad, essentially, but you can't help but feel off with them. I think, at least for me, for the first season, I couldn't place this guy. And let me just say his name first. So, this guy is Ju Yojong, who was played by Lee Do Hyun. And I don't think I have watched a lot of Lee Do Hyun shows, or maybe I have, but I can't really remember. But in this particular show, this guy has done such a tremendous job because I couldn't place him. Honestly, you know, if you've watched Cheese in the Trap, you would probably know what I'm talking about, because the male lead in that show had this whole situation where he was not technically bad, but he just gave off these off vibes, like these very weird, very unsettling sort of aura. He had that, and you just couldn't place him. And he did unexplainable things which you just, which made you uncomfortable to a degree, but then also not enough for you to be like, what the hell, I just need to leave the room, right? Yeah, he was that sort of great character, and I loved that about him. He was very dynamic, and for the sake of the story, he was also a plastic surgeon. And that played well, because there's a scene, I don't remember what episode this was, but she approaches him. So he's basically the son of the director of the hospital where Yunsoi's body is preserved. So whilst they're getting to know each other, he sorts of falls in love with her. He likes her enough that he teaches her how to play Go, Hatok, and then he basically offers himself to be the executioner, offers himself to be used by her so that she could do whatever she wants to exact this revenge, to, avenge herself and Yoon So Hee. And also, in the long run, he becomes her safe haven, which happens. It's a very odd thing because he meets her and she basically initially runs away because she's obviously she has trust issues. She cannot trust anybody. And he tries to be nice to her. He tries to be kind to her, but at this point she doesn't know if she can accept that or even if she deserves to accept that. And at that time he makes her feel, you know, like herself a little bit almost. He makes her not think of all the bad things. So he's like a little break in the midst of a lot of dark things that happen to her. So he is a breath of fresh air basically. And then she sort of doesn't want that to affect her because she realizes that she feels safe with him and she doesn't want to feel safe with him because the fact that if she stops for even a second, if she gets distracted, it's going to, you know, drive her away from her actual purpose in life. So she abandons him. But then they reconnect over the years, and then they form this alliance where he actively tells her to her face that, oh, she can, use him. He will be the executioner for her to do this revenge thing. But there's also a little twist in the story where Yojong is also a victim himself. And he has been the victim of a murder that occurred in his hospital of his own father at the hands of a psychopath. And oh my god, this side plot was not really, relevant with Mundongan's story, but it added that extra oomph to the story, right? Because the whole interaction, like the whole track where Yojong was basically trying to get rid of these hallucinations, these intrusive thoughts of murdering this guy who had killed his dad in cold blood, who was only trying to help him. No other doctor wanted to help him because he was a, criminal. And then the criminal, the psychopath guy, kills his dad in return, and he's just traumatized by that. And he's trying to get therapy for it and trying everything, but the only thing that has helped him so far is basically having Mundanga in his life, and she sort of, takes away that pain from him, and she sort of distracts him. And so in a way they're both kind of bonding over their traumas but not telling each other about it. They both feel safe around each other because they both know that feeling. And so, in a way, silently, they just reach out for each other. Anyway, so this whole plot story is where, like, he is fighting himself for the instinct as a doctor to save people, but then having these thoughts about actually trying to harm this guy for doing what he did to his dad. So it's very interesting to watch, and he played a really nice sort of a dichotomy of thoughts when it comes to a professional such as a doctor and a son who watches his dad being murdered right in front of his eyes by a patient. So what does he do? Which side of his, life, which aspect of his life is he supposed to prioritize in such situations? It's a very interesting question, actually, and one that the psychopath actually asks him, because this dude does not rest even after he's condemned and sent to jail for what he did. He keeps writing letters to Yojong and expressing in great detail of the things that he did to his father, and expressing how much joy he got out of it, and how he was, so fascinated by the cold stare, the dead stare of a victim. He's been harassing this poor guy for years now, and nobody else knows, not even his mother, who actually was a very nice woman because she was one of those people who were actually good and a breath of fresh air in the midst of all these scummy people. Oh my god, so much darkness. And then there was this one woman who just wanted to lose weight so she could fit into her bikini. So she could like go find herself a European guy, which was nice because the sort of dynamic they showed of the director and Yo Jong, the son, it was really nice because it just gave you an idea that tragedies may be hard, but they can bring out beautiful connections that you didn't know you had, or make you value the things that you did not value before. So, anyways, as the plot progresses, Yojong actually moves from Seoul to Semyong, which is the place where all these people exist right now. And he opens up his own practice and he buys a house for himself. And this house was pretty interesting because it was made of glass. It was huge and the ceiling was pretty high and it was all surrounded by glass. And that was a very nice metaphor. I think the whole way of showing vulnerability of two people who had been scarred for life by things that had happened, it just showed the delicacy and the fragile sort of walls they put up to shield them from the outside. And I was very fascinated by this because that's all I could think of. Every time they did scenes in that house, they had no curtains. It was just, a space surrounded by glass and a tall, high ceiling glass at that. And there were scenes where it was snowing outside, there were scenes where it was raining outside, and they could hear everything. They could listen to the rain pelting on the windows. And there was this one scene where uh, Donggun finally shows him the scars because he at this point has no idea how deeply scarred she is. He has no idea how damaged she is. And then she basically strips in front of him and he gets to see all her scars. And in that moment, it was so beautiful the way they played on this whole thing because he's a plastic surgeon. He looks at the scars and he says that he wants to heal them and that she should let him heal her. And then she's like, I don't want to. And then he's like, I know, looking at these scars, because I'm a plastic surgeon, I know that how much, it must have taken for them to get them on her body and how much that would have hurt her. And he knows that for her to heal from that, she needs to have to cut them deeper because it will only heal if he cuts deeper into the tissue so that the tissue heals itself, which was a very nice take on, the fact that for her to finally be able to release herself from this hell, from this pain, she needs to take that one last step. She had to plunge into the darkness inside, confront it, before it gets better. And that was very poetic. All right, before we, talk about what she actually does to each person, each bully, I need to mention this one person who was also a very significant person in the plot, but also had a side story of her own. And there were so many subplots in the whole series that it kind of got confusing at times, but it all made sense. I like the fact that, the writer was able to bring all of that together somehow, But anyways, so this woman, her name is Kang Hyun Nam, and her character is played by this very lovely actress called Yom Hiran. And you might have known her from other shows if you watched Goblin. I mean, that's the one that came to my head because her character was like one of those Cinderella stepmom characters in that. And she was evil as hell, greedy in that show. But in this particular setting, she plays the role of this very much abused mother of a girl. And she basically meets Donggun while she's going through their rubbish pile outside the house because that's how she basically gets her hands on all the evidence and other shady things that might implicate them. So, and then she offers her to, bring her more intel in exchange for the murder of her husband. literally threw me off. I was like, what? What kind of deal is that? But then it was revealed later that her husband abuses her. She is a victim of domestic violence, and not only just her, but her daughter as well, who is just trying to live a normal, middle school life, but she has to come home every day to watch her father beat the shit out of her mother and also her. And so they both sort of form this acquaintanceship, this partnership, where basically Hyunnam becomes her ears and eyes, and she stalks these people for her, the bullies for her, and she's like doing all these undercover missions and everything, with the promise that she would be able to get rid of her husband. And, you know, morally speaking, I don't know what to say. I don't have any thoughts. For a domestic violence victim to want that, to wish that, I think that's justified because they're going through the kind of things that could kill them. So in that moment, they're just like one blow away from a kidney injury or bleeding their heart out. And what then? They'd just be a victim who died. For them to want to fight back, for them to want to be, away from all of this. I mean, obviously, murder is not an option. It shouldn't be. But in these cases, in these settings, I don't know, man. Anyways, she has innocence to her, which makes you feel so bad for her. It makes your heart hurt every time she gets, abused by her husband. But then she's such a fighter. She comes back every time, and she goes to all of that just so that she could shield her child. And the whole thing was just messed up. Like, there's this point where, Dong Eun basically tells her to send her daughter abroad, and she was going to sponsor her daughter to go abroad. And then, Park Hyun Jin sort of finds out in that time that she has been helping Moon Dong Eun, and so she tries to threaten her and everything. And then Hyunnam, she basically gets a little spooked out, so she tries to run away, which later turns out that she was just pretending to run away. But anyways, then the kid, she comes back and she tells Dong Eun, the girl, that her mother had always tried to protect her, and she knew that she was doing everything in her life to do that, and all she wanted was to have a single meal with her family where she wouldn't get harassed or beaten to a pulp. Right, let's talk about how she handles all these characters and how she exacts her revenge, actually. Now, to be honest, I wanted a little more dramatic sort of build up and climax, because what they gave us was okay. I mean, the writer tied up all the loose ends, and she gave us an explanation for everything that had happened, and she even gave us a bit of a outlook on the future for these people as well. But it just wasn't enough. I don't know what it was. I don't know what made me feel this way, but I just wasn't satisfied enough. Like, it was good, but it was not good enough. I sound like a very pretentious brat right now, like Draco Malfoy. My father will hear about this sort of thing, but I don't know. I just wasn't satisfied enough. Like, I wanted something like Vincenzo to happen. I don't know. Maybe I wanted more violence, because seeing all of the stuff that Mundongan had gone through, just having Park Hyunjin locked up at the end was not enough. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel that that was enough of a punishment for her. She was still sane. She was still, getting served 3 meals a day. And even though she was now being bullied by her inmates, but that wasn't enough. She wasn't actually being bullied enough. So, I don't know. Eye for an eye, that's the kind of stuff I was expecting from this, but that's not how this happened. So starting off with Sun Myung-go, basically this dude, the one who actually harassed her, and he goes missing. Basically, she puts him up to sort of extort money from Park Hyun Jin somehow, at the expense of exposing her about the murder of Yoon So Hee. But he tries to, um, double play her, but then it backfires on him, and then he goes missing. Now, there's an active investigation going on into his disappearance, and that's how everybody gets involved because all the others, they're chill. They don't care. This dude who had grown up with them, this dude who was doing all of their work, like John Jae-joon's, he was the driver, he was his assistant, he was bringing him his laundry and all that stuff. This dude that he had grown up with, he had gone missing and he had no care in the world. He was like, whatever, good riddance. And that just goes to show the kind of rotten insights these people had. They had no room for empathy, they had no room for caring, they had no room for any positive feeling. And not only that, this John Jae-joon guy, he was sleeping around with everybody. This was the same creep who probably sexually assaulted Nonga. It's implied, it's not really shown, but yeah, this dude was a creep. And he was actually colorblind. And he was so, insecure about that. And which was really fun to watch, him being insecure about something, because it just, I don't know, maybe I'm a horrible person for, being elated about the fact that he had an actual impairment, but he deserved that. He'd really deserved that. If there's one person who deserves to be, a colorblind asshole, it's him. You don't get to see the wonderful world for what it is, the beauty in it, because you are a rotten person. Oh my god. So this dude is in love with Park Hyun Jin, and he finds out that Park Hyun Jin's daughter is actually his daughter. And then he is trying to do everything under the sun, from getting her divorced to showing up at Park Hyun Jin's daughter's school to get to know her better, to maybe brainwash her into thinking that he's her actual dad and not Ha Do-young, Park Hyun Jin's husband. And he basically is doing everything. And at one point, he's ready to basically murder everybody. I don't know. He's that kind of a-hole. Anyway, so basically this dude is in love with Park Hyun Jin, and he had given the alibi. He had been the alibi for Park Hyun Jin the night Yoon So Hee dies. So he's in for it. Like anything that Park Hyun Jin says, he drops everything that he's doing to basically come do her bidding. And it's so annoying to watch that. That's all he wants. They have a love-hate sort of relationship throughout where they go back and forth. But then this is exactly the kind of, reality that I guess the writer was trying to show, that they're so selfish, they're so innately selfish, that they're together, but not for the sake of being together, but because it somehow benefits them. And that's all. And it was so annoying. The whole deal with him trying to get, Park Hyun Jin's daughter's custody was not because he felt fatherly towards her, because this dude had no, fatherly selves in him. None at all. No paternal instincts. It was more of a pride thing for him. It was the fact that, oh, this is my object and I need it in my care. I need it to be under my observation. It needs to be my property. It's my DNA. So it belongs to me. The sense of entitlement, oh god, I hated it so much. Anyway, so what happens to him is that she somehow convinces Choi Ye-jong to switch his glaucoma medicine, which he needs to, these are eye drops that he needs. And she does, because she's a vengeful a-hole as well. And so he basically gets blinded and then gets thrown into this pool of cement by this unknown entity, which literally turns out to be Ha Do-young, because he's done with his bullshit, okay? He wants to leave the country, take his child away, who he knows that not biologically his, but he doesn't care. He thinks of her as his own child. And I think he was also one of those characters that made me feel like, okay, no, the entire world is not going to shit, okay? some people still exist who would do everything for their children, and good people do exist. Even though he's not particularly good, he's not good. He still has his drawbacks. He still has some evilness to him. But I feel like that was such an interesting take on humans, right? All these characters in the show, none of them are black or white. All of them have bits and pieces of evilness, of goodness in them. And they're basically dealing with the hands that they've been dealt. But also, it kind of at the same time contradicts the fact that they're inherently evil as well. Some of them. I mean, at least Park Hyun-jin. You can't convince me otherwise. I would never ever consider the fact, or even want to think of the fact that, or even if there's the slightest chance of the fact that she probably grew up in a bad environment and that's why she is the way she is. Because no, this woman, if there was one who was born evil, that's her. Isara and Trejong have a very, you know, I don't know, interesting dynamic where Isara is a drug addict and Son Myung-go was her drug dealer, and her father is a pastor. So she comes from an influential family and a religious family as well, and then she's a drug addict, and she's just like the worst kind of person to have as a friend because she doesn't care. The minute she feels abandoned, the minute she feels cornered, she's going to freaking put her tail between her legs and run. Okay, abandoning you. And the minute she feels like, you're not of use to her, she would get rid of you. And that's what she does when she gets exposed for her drug addiction. And it's very actually it was very dramatic the way she gets exposed because Moon Dong-eun somehow lures her into the basement of the very church that his father is a pastor at, and whilst he's doing a sermon thingy, she lures her into the basement where she ends up drugging herself, and then she starts sort of performing sexual acts on herself in the induced like haze of the drugs. And she puts up cameras, when Logan puts up cameras, so it gets live streamed, and everybody in the church sort of ends up in the basement watching her doing all of that. And then at the same time, she exposes Park Hyun-jin by uploading the actual police report and her Yoon So-hee's basically assault and the details about it. And then she addresses it as weather forecaster A, but like everybody knows, because Park Hyun-jin has not been subtle about her bullying ways, to say the least. So everybody sort of ends up figuring out who that is. But then she sort of makes it look like Park Hyun-jin had amplified the whole news about her, Isara, to hide her own scandal. And in turn, Isara goes and uploads all the bullying videos that she'd taken of Park Hyun-jin bullying Yoon So-hee and uploads it online for everybody to see. And it just goes back and forth for them, and they don't even know who started it first or who's doing it, but they're just like, because they're suspicious of everybody, because they know that they've done something wrong, and they know that these are people who have stuff against them, they're dirty laundry, so obviously they're going to suspect each other. So that's what they do, and they keep exposing each other like that, and they end up literally airing all their dirty laundry. And then in the meanwhile, this girl Trey Jong, she is trying to I don't know, I think out of all of them, this woman had the most, still very questionable, but the most amount of compassion, would I call it? Or so, she had a soft spot for her friends, at least, or what she considered to be friends, because even after going through all the bullying that they did to her, actually, all the humiliation that they put her through for not being on their level or not being as rich, or constantly telling her that if hadn't been Moon Dong-eun, she would have been bullied, she still sticks by for some reason. Maybe because she wants to be part of the cool group, and that's just such a rotten excuse to hang around with people like that, but whatever, she did. And she tries to sort of help them in a way, like in a very backhanded way, where she is not completely truthful and she's like secretly hoping that her help wouldn't do anything and they would still go and rot in jail or whatever. So she tries, but then she's also the one who basically puts them into, the firing range of each other. So she fuels the fire from the side, which was very interesting and very mean of her. But anyway, she ends up getting stabbed by Isara at Song Myung-ho's funeral because he ends up being dead. And yeah, so that's how she loses her vocal cords and no longer able to speak. I think out of all of them, I think she got what she deserved. She was the only person who got long lasting damages. I mean, going to jail for life, for murder, for bullying. Sounds like, you know, an okay deal, but in my opinion, not enough. That doesn't alter your life all that much. You're still the same you that you were. You could still be that same person you were in prison and live a normal life. But with her, she lost a part of her. And I think that is fair for what she did to Mundongun. I I don't know. I mean, I sound very aggressive because of like this whole idea, but I believe in an eye for eye in these situations. So yeah, I think that was the closest to being a fair deal for me. And now we talk about the last person, but not the least, because this woman, the actual problem, the mother of evil, I don't know what to call her. I don't want to swear because I'm fasting, and plus, God. But anyways, you can probably imagine the kind of feelings and emotions I have towards this woman. Because not only is she entitled, narcissistic, big bad bully, but also the fact that she doesn't care about the fact that now being a married woman and having a child, being a mother herself, being a girl herself, she still has no idea what it means. The fact that till the very end, she doesn't think that she'd done anything wrong. Till the very end, she refuses to take accountability. She refuses to see the wrong in her actions. She refuses to apologize. She refuses to acknowledge the hurt she'd caused Mundongun and the other girl. The only thing that she cared about was the fact that she couldn't get away with it. And that was so excruciatingly painful to watch. Oh my god. Like, I wanted to smack her through the screen. Like, oh god, she made my blood boil. And I think, yes, you could understand why she did that when you saw her interacting with her mother. She constantly told her off for not being able to handle somebody of a lower class, or for her to leave evidence behind, not being able to dispose of a crime scene properly or whatever. I mean, is that the kind of stuff you teach your kids? Like, her mother was messed up, okay? And yes, I understand that that probably did play a huge role. And then her mother actually ends up abandoning her. The whole thing with her mother was pretty intense and very unsettling to think that at the end of the day, her mother even betrayed her. They were all a bunch of a-holes and just nasty people who thought of nothing but themselves, who were selfish to the very core. And I guess the apple didn't fall far from the tree. And so yeah, that was Park Hyun-jin. She gets basically charged with the murder of Sun Myung-go, and it is proven that she bullied Yoon So-hee as well. So in a way, I mean, they do come full circle, and then she gets sent to jail. But was that enough? I don't know. She gets divorced by Ha Do-young because he's like, I'm done with you. He tries. That dude actually tries to keep a semblance of a family going for the sake of his child, even after he finds out that she had cheated on him with the John Jae-jun, and even when he finds out that his daughter is not actually biologically his daughter, and even after he finds out what happened to Moon Dong-gun, he still tries. He gives her chances every single time. He's like, confess. Please go apologize. Please don't do this. But every time she's like, no. She thinks whatever she did was okay because she could. And that's the entire, like, that's one thing that stays constant throughout. She refuses to acknowledge. She refuses to take accountability. And I think for that, she deserves to rot in hell. There's this one really interesting conversation that Ha Do-young and Yo Jong have, and it really sort of stuck with me, where basically Ha Do-young asks Yo Jong to basically stop Moon Dong-un from doing what she was doing, and he asked if she would be happy after she got her revenge. Like, why was she doing it, and what would she get out of it? What had been done in the past. And Yoo Jung's answer, I think, is the crux of the entire story. He said that, what do you think a victim wants when they've lost everything? They've lost their dreams, they've lost, their will to live, they've been scarred for life, they've been traumatized, their identities have been ruined, and they've been pushed to the brink of, nothing. And all they want is a semblance of, they want to recover their glory. If that's what they want, and if they can get that, that should be enough. So it's thinking that, for a victim who has gone through so much, what does it mean for them to have revenge? I mean, is it futile? Does it make no sense for them to want for their abusers to experience even the slightest bit of what they'd put them through? Is that even, is that wrong? Is that so wrong for them to demand justice? And we're not talking about, the romanticized justice that we think of when we think of, revenge plots like this. It's for them to be broken inch by inch until they can live in the same hell. And that's what she does. That's what her motive is from the beginning. She doesn't want to, you know, prove anything to anybody. That's not why she's doing it. All she wants is for them to feel what they felt, Yoon So-hee felt, what Moon Dong-gun herself felt. And there's a difference in that, right? Because you're not trying to justify the fact that you were wronged. No, but you're trying to. No, for her, it was about punishment. It wasn't about right or wrong. It was about delivering that same pain that she had received. And I think that was justified. In my opinion, she had all the right to do that. And she did. Why do they get to live fulfilling lives when her life is stuck at 18? Why do they get to have nice homes, nice clothes, a good reputation, when she can't even go outside without having to, hide herself, hide her scars? Why do they get to, dress prettily and look pretty and feel pretty when she has to look herself in the mirror every day, see the scars that remind her of the torture that she'd been through? And for what? For existing? For being poor? Really? It was a lot to think about. So, yes, these were some very intricate sort of details that they portrayed, some very messy sides of humans, I should say, and they did it quite well. The team, the locations were great, the costumes were great, I don't know, everything about the show was nice, except for the fact that I expected more out of the revenge plot that they built up, in all these episodes. I wanted more. I don't know. I just do. Anyway, I think I've talked enough and my voice is going out. Can't drink water because I'm fasting, so I just have to take breaks in between to sort of, calm down my throat. But, anyways, I think I'm gonna stop here now, give my final thoughts. What are my final thoughts about this show? I feel like the build up was great. The characters, the casting is amazing. They had some very great actors and actresses in the show, and they built up a nice story. They played their characters well, and we did not have any loopholes left. We did not have any unanswered questions as far as the revenge is concerned. But I don't know, it just felt a little incomplete and a little rushed at the end for me. And you just kind of lose the plot after she's done with all of them. You kind of just, don't know what to do because first 15 episodes prior to that, that's all you were thinking about. That's all the story is focused on, the revenge, 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 and then suddenly it's done. And yeah, there is no, like, when you think of execution, you think of the perpetrators, the abusers, the criminals being placed in a room with the victim, and the victim gets to watch them, like, in olden times where they would do like public execution and stuff. That's what I was thinking. Like, I wanted them to have a face off where she would be in the same place where they were together. And I know that that would probably not have been possible for her to exact her revenge, like technically not possible, because she wanted to break them apart and prey on them separately. She wanted to break them apart so that she could take them down separately. But I wanted them to like have this moment where it would be 5 against 1, and she would be the bigger person now. She would be the stronger person now, and she could watch them all as a group sort of shatter and lose all that cockiness and all that narcissism and all that confidence that they had while they were bullying her and torturing her, all of that. But I guess still it was good. I think I would give this show like an 8 out of 10 for everything, and it was a good watch. I mean, I binged it in a day, and while I was sick actually, yeah. So even through all of that, I was watching this and I was kind of like getting all worked up, but it was nice. It was good. Am I as hyped up about it as other people seem to be? Not really. I have seen better revenge plot stories, but it was still good. I don't know how to put it. I mean, I probably already have rambled a lot about it. But, anyways, that was my opinion, my thoughts, and I would like to know what you think. So, whatever your thoughts are, you can come find me on my Instagram. That is my intrusive.thoughts. And you can talk to me about the show if you want. Leave your opinions in my DMs or on the post wherever you want. And we can get talking about this. Other than that, I hope that you're fine. Now, my energy meter is just going down to 0. Like, I'm on reserve now. So, I sound tired to myself even. But anyways, I would like to take my leave now. Hopefully you guys are going to be safe out there and have a good week ahead of you. Allah Hafiz.